Hi everyone. So we're back talking about the next few chapters of The Enlightened Gardener. Lovely to be back with you. I love reading this book. I read it and then I forget what I've read. I just get left with a feeling and then I read it again so I can create this video. I've read these 4 chapters about 3 times now, and I thought I'm going to sit down and create this video. There's so much. These chapters are so rich, these 4, and they seem to be all with different focuses to each other. And so for you, it's interesting to notice like which part came up as real for you, like which chapter resonated for you. Was it the chapter on forgiveness? Was it the chapter on thought change? Was it which chapter was it that really spoke to you? And for me, it was the chapter on original thought. So again, I was seeing the message all the way through these 4 chapters about that, like, no need to focus on the problems, right? So when the gardener, when Andy is talking to Helen, the hotel manager, that he's not talking to her about her problems. He's talking to her about this beautiful understanding. And then she turns around and all her alcoholism has just kind of melted away without her looking. Right? The idea of looking like no need to discuss the problem in order to find a solution. This is so beautifully elegant. And also, again, a reiteration of like, if somebody doesn't want to hear, they're not ready to listen, then there's no way that we can help them see this understanding or share it with them. Until someone's genuinely interested, then I think the expression they use in the book is you can take a horse to water, but you can't force it to drink. And I think that's so true here. It's like when you are touched by this understanding, you have something beautiful to share with those who want to listen. And that's it. So all pressure off you, right? If someone wants to listen, if they come to you and asking you more about what it is that you know, then please do share with them. But if you're going and sharing with people and wondering why they're not getting it, like, or you know that someone would really benefit from this understanding and they don't seem to be hearing it from you, then it's because they have no interest in listening. And who knows at what point they will listen. Now, to my mind, I know that as we walk around in the feeling of our own understanding, that changes the people around us. It's the best we can do. It's like if you're in the environment of someone who doesn't want to listen, like you notice with Peter and what's his name? The really grumpy guy, Tom, the huffy Tom, right? Like he really doesn't, he really doesn't want to listen. But so Eric and Andy, both of them, they just show up and they're just loving and kind, and they explain when Tom asks them a question, but they're not trying to ram it down his throat. And they just are okay with the fact that he's not hearing. They just continue to show up as they are in a lovely feeling. And at some point, Tom might get interested. We'll find out later in the story. But the chapter that really spoke to me was the chapter on original thought. And it's so beautiful. What came to mind for me was it's almost like thought is like one of the Peter was saying, I was told there was no such thing as original thought, right? Everything being taught today was built on yesterday's knowledge. Today's knowledge is a descendant of yesterday's. And that means that we're kind of trapped with all our old ideas and everything that's been thought before, that there is no original thought. We're just an accumulation of our experiences and our circumstances, and all the rest of it is all creating thought within us. And then we are recipients of that thought as a result of our conditioning. And that's kind of mainstream way of considering how our experience, how thought is created. And to my mind, it brings to mind the metaphor of a computer. So we've got this computer with everything that's ever been programmed into it. So all its programming's like how it functions, but it's also got all the content and all the information. So it's got videos and it's got files and it's got stories and it's got coding and it's got Word documents and you can type into the computer, and what will come out of it is everything that's ever been put into it. So if you go search for a Word document with the word lemons in it, it'll produce all of the Word documents that have ever been created in the computer with the word lemon in it, right? So it's recycling old, stale information, but it's going into the data banks and retrieving what it can. And that's what tends to be our personal thought. That's why we have very circular thinking. It's why we ruminate over and over again on the same problems and don't seem to come to a solution. It's why we have the same problems circulating again and again, and the same experiences circulating again and again and again. Is going back into our conditioning and our habitual thinking and just churning through the data banks of everything that's ever been put in there through our parenting, our society, our schools, our teaching, what we've learned about the self, what we've learned about personal development, the culture that we grow up in, the environment that we're in. It's all going into the data banks, right? And then we're searching through that, trying to find the answers to things like happiness, right? Or peace, or contentment, or a quiet mind, but the thing is, those things are never found in the data banks of the computer. They can't be found there. And to my mind, original thought, as Sid describes it in the Enlightened Gardener here, it's like suddenly being connected to the internet, and suddenly whoosh, a totally different thought or a totally different idea or a totally different something new, fresh, of the moment, previously unknown, can come in, and it's current and it's alive and it's fresh and it's so valuable. Like if I go to the internet and I Google, like I'm in a hotel at the moment as I'm recording this, but if I'm here and I go in and I Google spa hotel, right, like chances are the spa at this hotel is going to show up because I'm here, right, first in the Google results. But if I'm go and live in Newcastle and I Google spa, what comes up will be a different answer, right? Sometimes when I'm here and I Google spa, a different answer will come up 2 hours from now than would do right now, because it's fresh and it's reacting right to the moment. And it might shoot through and it might be a completely different spa recommendation to all the ones that I know in my mind. Like I think I know all the spa hotels around here. And so if I'm thinking, which spa hotel shall I go to? I've got a data bank full of spa hotels that I'll churn through and then decide which is the best one. If I plug into the internet, I could well get surprised by something that I never knew before, like just didn't exist in my world before. I couldn't even imagine it before because there was just no concept of it at all in my experience, and therefore no experience of it. And all of a sudden there's something new and fresh that comes through. And so most people don't know that we have access to that. This source of inspired ideas, this source of spiritual knowledge that gets revealed to us from this deeper space that's more true, more fresh, more alive. And one of the quotes from the book is like, Andy says, "All I can tell you, gentlemen, is the way I see life. The way it appears to me, original thought lies deep within the soul of all human beings and is revealed by a true realization, or if you wish, an insight beyond the intellect." So the intellect is this data bank of facts and figures and thinking and conditioning. And through insight, this deeper layer of spiritual knowledge, of knowing who and what we are, of knowing how life works, of knowing our true selves, the peace and contentment and love that we are, and the source of all creativity. There's this like underneath layer. It's not a layer, it's totally formless, but this source underneath this that shoots up through, and it blasts through any conditioning. Insight transcends our conditioning in a heartbeat. It's not like learning, where we have to learn a little bit and a little bit and a little bit, and we get better and better and better, and it's an incremental, step by step, fact by fact journey. There is no journey to wisdom. It's just sitting there waiting to reveal itself to us the moment there's a gap in the thought storm, the moment there's And the moment the data quiets for a moment, the internet pops up and gives you an answer, or it reveals itself in the shape of love or a deeper feeling or contentment or peace of mind. It's waiting there to reveal itself. And it doesn't take any time. It's not like the more you learn about the principles, the more this comes through. It's not a time-based thing. And Sid talks about this in the book, that the idea that wisdom takes time is such a fallacy, it's such a myth. It keeps us on a path of continually searching and seeking. Once you realize it's your innate, you're born with the capacity already to realize insight. And the insight, this deeper space, is the source of everything you're looking for. You just get less inclined to go in and type into the keyboard, like, how do I get happiness, right? How do you use the intellect for the things it's designed for? Like, I don't know, what's 2 add 3, right? Or how do I measure for curtains? Or like how to read a book, right? Like the intellect is really great for things like that. So we can use it, but we try and use it for, how do I find happiness? How do I find contentment? How do I find peace? How do I get rid of this feeling? How do I come up with a new business idea? How do I parent my kids? How do I have a better relationship? What should I do next with my life? What's my life purpose? Why am I here? Do I believe in God? Right? Anything and everything. The questions that we type into the data banks. I mean, go and disconnect your actual computer from the internet and type into it, how do I get love, right? And type into it, like, how do I find happiness? And just see what comes up. And that's essentially what you're doing with your own mind when we don't know that there is original thought. And so as we start to see that the answers we're looking for are not found here, we just stop going there and booting up the computer so often. That's what we're doing, booting up the computer to look for answers. And instead we let that quieten because we just don't go and boot the computer up as often. And as we do that, more and more of what we seek gets revealed to us now. No need to wait, now. When Mrs. Taylor had her insight in the story, she had all this thinking and depressed thinking and sadness and ideas about her father and their relationship and thinking about them. And every time she booted up the computer, she would go into this thought pattern, habitual thinking. And every time she did that, she felt sad and depressed. And then what happened was when Eric talked to her about the nature of thought, it wasn't what he said, but it was suddenly this shoot of original thought shot through all of it. So powerful. It's like the bright light shooting through all of it, undeniably. And she saw the truth of the fact that her experience was creating through thought, that she was creating those feelings in herself. She had never seen that before in her life. It's not a thought that was part of the conditioning. She saw truth. Truth revealed itself to her in that moment. And she saw the truth of it for herself. She didn't just grab it from Eric and put it into here and it became another good idea, which is what a lot of us do when we bump into the principles. We grab ideas and we put them in here and then we wonder why it's not helping. She saw truth. She realized it for herself. And when you do that, I heard Mark Howard describing this the other day. He said, it's like my molecules changed. But it's true, it rearranges everything in the database when new information comes in, when new original thought comes in, everything here rearranges. And suddenly Mrs. Taylor has a relationship of forgiveness and love and connection with her father, and she doesn't have depression and anxiety showing up in this pattern of thinking anymore. That, to me, is just awesome, the power of original thought. And if you're pretty new to this conversation or you're wondering well, I don't get it. It's like for me, all I started to see that there was something other than this. at the beginning of this conversation. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know where to look. I didn't understand what they meant about a feeling and all that stuff. All I knew is, oh, there's something other. And that curiosity and that openness, that was an insight. I'd never considered there was anything other than this, but I heard that. I heard there's something other, which is so intangible and couldn't really get my hands around it, but it makes total sense now. But there's something other. But that other I got a sense of, even as kind of a feeling for, was this gift of original thought. Now, traditional therapies and psychologies don't take that into account. They think that you have to either analyze the content of this, or discuss the content of this, or try and add in new content here so that next time this content appears, you can tackle it and cope with it better. That's all at this level. It doesn't take account of the potential in every human being for original thought. And that's something in this conversation we rely on, because there is no other source of change. It's not a skill we have to develop in our clients. It's not a skill you have to learn for yourself. You're born with that shooting through of original thought. You've all had an idea out of the blue. That's what that is. You've all had an experience of love and connection. That's this showing itself. That's the feeling of this original thought. You've all felt inspired or moved by a piece of music or a sunset or a moment in your life. That's this shooting through, breaking through the noise above and letting itself be felt. So I've never heard it called original thought before. Outside of this book, I've never heard it described that way. And that's really what I'm taking from these 4 chapters of The Enlightened Gardener. So next week, again, share in the Facebook group what you're getting from it, because I always love to hear. So next week, we're going to be doing the chapter starting rediscovering mind and soul, all the way down to the end of the picnic. Okay, so you read those chapters and then come back and watch the video next week. I hope you're enjoying these. I'm really enjoying this chance to read with you and reflect. Let me know in the Facebook group what you're finding. See you later.